Day one of practice sessions and kart drivers were doing their best to wear in the surface.
It's a fantastic track. The guys up here always do a great job for these big meetings. Yeah, the track's a little bit green at the moment, but that's to be expected. It's only Wednesday.
Official qualifying across the 4 age groups begins on Friday, leaving plenty of time for the midgets, rookies, juniors and seniors to prepare for the second biggest meeting in Australia. In the senior ranks, everyone's chasing this man. While some riders fund their entire operation, defending state champion Jason Hynuk rides for a manufacturer. But apparently that's not always ideal.
Sometimes they might come out with a card or a part they like you to test first, and sometimes it can be really good and most times it's not that good, so it can also be a disadvantage as well.
Karting is well known as a family sport, and today, as always, local hopes Dylan and Jack Lindgren had Dad in the pits. Brother Jack will need more luck this weekend than he had during today's practice session, while 21-year-old Dylan has his sights set on claiming the state crown.
I'm not sure if that'll happen. I'm aiming for it, but yeah, fingers crossed that it'll happen.
But like all of the 200 drivers at these championships, it's just about the thrill of the chase.
You get an adrenaline rush when you're out there, but it's fairly safe.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The end of the Newcastle Link Road to the F3 freeway at Seahampton is effectively a road to nowhere. A plan has been in place for the last 15 years to extend the freeway from here to Branxton, taking pressure off the already clogged New England highway through Maitland. But the two tiers of government can't agree on who'll pay what.
Whilst we have the largest and fastest growth in inland New South Wales in Maitland, we are going to be in problem area unless, of course, the federal government and state government put differences aside, put money on the table and call tenders for this job. It's only going to get more expensive as time goes on.
The last estimate 6 years ago costed the project at $750 million. It's now thought to be $1 billion and would bring a financial boon to the region.
An additional 2,500 jobs, about $600 million extra industrial output, $111 million additional income to people in the Hunter.
It's going to take a few years for the government to get around to call tenders and to have construction. By that time, we could be gridlocked here in Maitland.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's taking back, a material that normally we would import into this country as crude oil, and then, and which is, again is a finite resource, and we're converting it back into something that has got a reuse again.
It's already got the palm trees, the marina, the boats, and it should have had a clubhouse on this vacant block 2 years ago. This is what the Newcastle Cruising Yacht Club's new building will look like. George Keegan says it's taken 2 years of battles with the State Planning Department to get the plans approved. It'll be all glass overlooking the marina with a bar, restaurant, showers and facilities for sailors.
Yacht clubs are notoriously not like the average club. They're not big on gambling. They're not big on much except blokes having a quiet drink and a feed, and it's as simple as that. And yeah, it'll be nice here, and it'll meet the needs of people who are boating people.
Meantime, just across the harbour, small boat owners are getting the launching facilities they've been wanting for years. The cracked old Carrington ramp is being replaced with a new one, 11.5 metres wide, capable of launching 3 boats at a time. The $250,000 upgrade should be finished by Christmas. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Staying as still as a statue for 3 hours was no mean feat for this sculptor.
It's hard to gauge just sitting still for so long. It's the main dilemma of it. I guess I'm a pretty active person, so that's the devil of the thing, you know.
He's the 4th person to pose for the National Trust Portrait Series, which has been run out of Maitland's Brough House since its inception last year.
And it's called the Drip in the Bucket series, which relates to the leaking roof that we've got here, because the money that is raised at the end of the programme, part of it will go towards restoring the historic properties.
Each of the 9 artists involved in the program pick a prominent personality to paint, but oddly enough, it wasn't John's excellent reputation that scored him this modelling job.
Basically because he's got such an interesting face, you know, it's very graphic, and it's, you know, it's, you know, it makes it very interesting.
The series is expected to be complete and on exhibition next year. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
With fire engine red brush strokes, artist Zoe Tweedale is recreating a screen legend. Not the blonde bombshell herself, but one of her most memorable accessories.
It was actually Marilyn Monroe's carnation shoe. It's a really beautiful shoe. It's sort of like to see more of them in shops actually.
Stylish and sophisticated, the movie star's shoe is the inspiration behind an art exhibition, definitely for the well-heeled.
Shoes change lives, just our Cinderella.
That's actually the name of the show, and let's face it, life wouldn't be the same after binding your feet in these miniature Uggs. 40 artists have given their take on the magic of shoes, the sheer joy of stepping out in style.
The amount of different things shoe designers do with those styles in different fabrics and in different ways really do reflect everybody's different personality.
So what do these tiny slippers knitted from human hair say? Well, if the shoe fits. The exhibition opens at Newcastle's Lovett Gallery tomorrow night.
Darren Smith says it was only a matter of time before his property at Williamtown came into the firing line, despite taking every precaution.
Every day you heard that someone else had the EI virus and it was just creeping closer and closer. So, yeah, I think we were a little bit like a boxer standing in the corner with our gloves down waiting to be knocked out.
More than 50 of his runners have tested positive, but fortunately none have a severe case. All will receive some TLC, but they'll still be out of action until 2008.
Most probably those horses will be sent back to the paddock for a spell. So yeah, it will affect our stable. It'll set us back a good 6 months.
Like most in the industry, Smith is hoping the Newcastle track remains flu-free until the vaccine is allocated. But once vaccination begins, he says the government needs to ease restrictions on horse movement because the virus will continue to spread anyway.
It's like a bushfire going wild and you've got a garden hose on it.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. He might be a crowd favourite, but that won't guarantee Mario Jardel a place in the starting lineup. Coach Gary Van Egmond clearly not enthused by club owner Con Constantine's insistence of more game time.
I think we've all been around long enough to know that it's probably not the best way to run a club.
CEO John Satsimas forced to defend the boss.
He certainly wants to see his investment realised, I would assume. So that's probably where he's coming from.
Jardel isn't the only selection headache, with defender Andrew Durante succumbing to a calf injury keeping him out of the Sydney clash. Joel Griffiths remains a 50-50 prospect. Defensively, the Jets are looking to recover after being stung late by Melbourne, but they say they won't be intimidated by Sydney's all-star cast.
I always feel that you play your best football when you play against quality opposition, so I'm just looking forward to the challenge.
A year ago, Kevin Curtin was on the brink of claiming the World Supersport title, but a crash during the final race in France handed the crown to Sébastien Charpentier. This year, crashes and injury have again taken their toll. This fall in April, during the Spanish Supersport race, ended Curtin's season.
Pierre Riva came from behind, crashed from behind, and his bike skated under me, and my bike spun in between my legs and basically tried to cut my leg off.
Now it seems the crash has also injured Curtin's desire to compete week in, week out on the gruelling international circuit.
I'm definitely not going back overseas, as much as I'd like it, but under the circumstances, I guess I will be racing in Australia next year.
While he's not sure who he'll ride for, Curtin is hoping to be on a superbike next year, competing in the Australian Championships. No longer with the full-time need for speed, he's looking forward to devoting more time to fishing and golf, as well as finishing his house at Lake Macquarie.
I grew up here and I don't think anything could drag me away.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The tragic death of off-duty police officer Senior Constable Paul Morris in a pedestrian accident at Tangkari last month sent a shockwave through the local area command. Today it remembered the fallen colleague, along with 249 New South Wales officers killed in the line of duty.
Every year we celebrate the lives of those colleagues that we've lost, and this year's no different. We've lost colleagues here again this year.
Among those paying tribute to the dedication and contribution of officers, the family of Glenn McAnally, who was shot dead in a Sydney street.
It's a sad occasion for many, but it's also the fact that family and friends and the general public remember what all our serving police officers do for the public.
Renee Murphy, NBN News. The crimes police will be targeting this long weekend come as no surprise.
Speeding, of course, drink driving and seat belts, as well as fatigue.
Every available Northern Region traffic officer, as well as police from Sydney, are currently enforcing Operation Slow Down across the state. The road operation began at midnight and runs through until midnight on Monday, as will double demerit points.
We're asking motorists to please be patient, obey the speed limits in those roadwork zones as they are enforceable, and please don't take any unnecessary risks.
And traffic is already heavy. Driver revivers opened at 8 o'clock this morning across the region to a constant but polite crowd.
They all love it, they all appreciate it, so it's really good.
Throughout the day, cars sat bumper to bumper on John Renshaw Drive, and while traffic was flowing along the Pacific Highway just north of Newcastle, it was at a slower pace. The RTA expects a fairly smooth run along the F3 and Pacific Highway between Sydney and Kew near Port Macquarie, but roadworks will bring extensive delays further north. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Little Eliza is still too scared to use this busy pedestrian crossing on Glebe Road at the junction. She'd been walking hand in hand with her family in May this year when she was struck by a car.
My littlest one was on the right. I wasn't quick enough to stop her. She took 2 more steps and right into the path of the car that's just come straight through the crossing.
Amazingly, she escaped with no more than cuts and bruises.
We were very lucky that she was on the brakes, and basically she was just picked up and then thrown off the bottom of the car onto the road.
The incident prompted Eliza's concerned dad to agitate the state government to improve the crossing often used by children from nearby schools. His efforts have now been rewarded with a funding commitment for the installation of traffic lights at the dangerous intersection.
Significant upgrade, a significant improvement, and it is about improving the safety for both motorists and, more importantly, the pedestrians and restaurant users of this area.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
This situation has been brewing for weeks, costing club owner Con Constantine a reported $250,000 he wants to get value for money from signing Mario Jardel. And, in his eyes, that means time on the pitch. Coach Gary Van Egmond has been reluctant to use him for long periods until now, with the striker expected to start tomorrow night.
If it's good for Mario to be in the game for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, half a game, full game, then Mario will do it.
Are you under instruction to use him in a particular way?
I'm under no instructions whatsoever.
Either way, it'll make keen viewing, and Stu Michalek will get a good look from the sideline after copping a 1-week suspension for using abusive language towards Melbourne's Rodrigo Vargas last week. Calling him a monkey, Michalek was originally accused of racially abusing him, but he felt somewhat vindicated today.
I'll cop it on the chin, I pleaded guilty to what I said, and I'm not hiding from the fact that I did make a remark, but there's just no racial intent in the remark that I did make.
The midfielder will contact Vargas in any case to clear the air. Meanwhile, defender Steve Labert looks set to make his debut tomorrow night, while Joel Griffiths should also play, despite a leg problem. Jim Callanan, NBN News. "10 years to the day, and you'd think the smiles had never left their faces from that one special September afternoon.
The build-up was almost as good as the celebrations. I'm lying now.
All but Lee Jackson from the 17 players who beat Manly made it back today, even those now based in England.
To have beaten the first from the region to win a comp's really special, and I think everyone knows that, so it's nice to come back and celebrate it.
And of course to reminisce.
It's a tight group. It's something very special in our lives as far as our profession is concerned. It's treasured.
And the aftermath of the result was just sensational. The appreciation of the Newcastle public was just fantastic.
Yeah, they're all half their age. I look quite younger. I think people think I was the ball boy, actually.
Robbie O'Davis scored 2 tries and was the Clive Churchill medal winner.
These guys are with me forever, and they make the memories of that day even better, seeing them all the time. So but it was up there. It was one of the best times of my life.
While Darren Albert has lost count how many times he's told the story about that try, so here's another look of the one that won a premiership.
Present the cup to another Geelong captain and coach.
It's just what police hoped to avoid, a horrific start to the New South Wales long weekend. Officers say at 11:15 this morning, a four-wheel drive attempted to turn off the Pacific Highway onto Viney Creek Road when it collided with this southbound trike. The impact killed the woman who'd been travelling in the rear of the trike and seriously injured the male rider. He was rushed to the John Hunter Hospital along with the female driver of the Pajero who suffered minor injuries. The accident caused northbound holiday traffic to slow to a crawl for around 3 kilometres. It's the second fatal accident to occur at the same intersection in the past 10 days. Tragic incidents like today's clearly highlight the urgent need for upgrading the Pacific Highway to dual carriageway between Hexham and Brisbane. But until the state and federal government commit adequate funding for the project, tragic incidents like today's will continue to occur. Madeline Bond, NBN News. This is what the Hunter's equine industry has been waiting for: 400 vials of relief. The medicine was due to arrive in the region yesterday, but was held up by customs delays at Sydney Airport and a lot of red tape, much to the frustration of Racing New South Wales.
I think everyone was waiting for him. It was much anticipated, and to have it put back 24 hours, a bit of a kick in the backside.
No chances were taken during today's vaccinations at Broadmeadow Racecourse. Cars were disinfected before being allowed into restricted livestock areas, while vets were clad in protective masks, suits and footwear.
Biosecurity's been very good here. I think that's one thing that's got us through this far.
5 vets injected around 340 horses in Newcastle, Maitland, Cessnock and Raymond Terrace today. But even with the vaccine administered, horses remain at risk of infection for the next 14 days.
There's partial immunity takes effect over a period of time, but the full immunity takes place after the second vaccination.
And while the racing industry may now be breathing a sigh of relief, they continue to count the cost of the disease debacle.
Racing-wise, it's set us back a long way. It'll probably be years to come to get back to normal. I think we'll feel this for quite some time.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Anthony Quinn got the name Mini Truck in his days playing at the Newcastle Knights, and since heading south this year, the powerfully built outside back has only enhanced his reputation for going through rather than around. But there's plenty of opponents who will well remember his ability to do just that as a junior playing for Valentine. He was a front row forward in those days, but just as unstoppable. Carrying a fierce reputation, he was the kid few could stop, and he hopes to carry it on all the way to a premiership.
I enjoyed coming down here and enjoyed the year, and we've just got that one more step.
Originally disappointed to leave Newcastle, he's also keen to repay the faith shown in him by the Storm.
If the opportunity's in front of you, you have to take it with 2 hands.
There's barely a patch of spare grass at Cameron Park this weekend, and there's even less room on the track as drivers continue to give nothing away in search of state success. The Rotax class were humming at around 100k an hour at the end of the top straight. However, few were able to catch Melbourne's David Sierra. The Clubman Heavy is one of the most hotly contested categories this weekend. But on the tight and testing Cameron Park circuit, not everyone can fit. Simon Roberts had other issues to worry about. Qualifying third on the grid, he was losing spots in a hurry in today's last heat after hitting engine trouble. Up front, it was all happening at breakneck speed as Peter Lawler went from first to fourth in 2 turns as drivers sweated on any mistake. For Roberts, a broken pipe cost him vital spots on the grid, but last year's state runner-up is determined to go one better tomorrow.
Don't want to make the same mistake as last year, and I want to go that one better, so it's really driving me a lot this year.
Whether it was to drop in a line or to cruise in luxury, the sparkling blue waters of Newcastle Harbour and Lake Macquarie proved a popular choice today. The October long weekend traditionally marks the beginning of the boating season, with more than 50 New South Wales maritime officers and coastal patrol volunteers now monitoring our waterways. They're out enforcing a new state government safety campaign aimed at making skippers more responsible. In the past year, 23 people have been killed in 17 boating accidents, an increase on the year before.
They should always have life jackets, especially if they've got children on board. The children should have their life jackets on.
424 skippers were fined for speeding on the water, while the same number was issued with fines for being unlicensed.
Only the people that have got the boat licence should be driving boats.
Mario Jardel hasn't lost that killer instinct, but it's taking time for him to show the sort of attack he's renowned for.
I think it's a work in progress for Mario. I think he needs more game time for him to get better, and the only way he's going to do that is by starting games.
The 34-year-old did last night for the first time since joining Newcastle. While busy, he saw only one genuine chance. It fell to another Brazilian, Juninho, to supply the special spark for Sydney FC, providing for Alex Brosk's deadly finish. With Jardel benched during the half-time break, Adam Griffiths kept his head and almost found an equaliser. Newcastle almost grabbed the draw in the dying minutes, but the 1-0 result was their first loss of the season. On a positive note, Newcastle remain outright second and expect to have Joel Griffiths and Stu Michalek back this week, while former Socceroo defender Steve Labert played his first 90 minutes in 5 months.
First time I played in Australia for a long time, so and just with some old mates and players, it's actually quite enjoyable.
governmental or
When a fire began burning through bushland at Salt Ash in the southwestern corner of Port Stephens at lunchtime, few could have imagined what would unfold. Resident Merv Hardigan was helping the RFS draw water from a storage tank when embers from the outbreak changed the situation dramatically. He says he knew instantly his uninsured home of 17 years would be lost.
All of a sudden, bang, up she went to the side and it was lapping the house, so we're lipping against the house and I knew it was gone then, so...
The situation was already so serious on the Telegree Peninsula, with separate outbreaks raging at Oyster Cove and Tanilba Bay, that a waterbombing helicopter operating in the area was diverted to the scene of the Hardigans' house fire. With his family home in ruins, Merv's immediate thoughts were for his children, especially his teenage ballerina daughter Rosie, who's currently overseas.
I think I've lost a fair few of her certificates and that. Rosie and Woody. Young bloke, he's fine, but they're trophies and all that sort of stuff. I can't replace it.
The Rural Fire Service says another nearby home and a number of sheds were also destroyed by the fire, which was being forced along by strong northwest winds that have gusted up to 70 kilometres an hour at times. Dozens of residents also decided to leave their homes for an evacuation centre at Tanilba Bay to escape the approaching thick smoke. Lemon Tree Passage Road, the main road in and out of the peninsula, has been closed for most of the afternoon as a huge contingent of RFS and New South Wales fire brigades from across Newcastle and the Hunter Valley move in to contain the outbreak. Gary Blair, NBN News. The police had promised a strong show of force for the Labor Day long weekend, and it was certainly there for motorists using the F3 freeway. Having already caught several drivers allegedly travelling at speeds of almost 160 kilometres an hour west of Newcastle, the stationary radar unit was still finding targets today. But in addition to the more than 300 speeding offences, the greatest concern to highway patrol officers were the dozens of motorists discovered not wearing seatbelts.
That's the most alarming stat of this whole weekend, that seatbelt offences are up double that of last year.
Random breath tests had a strike rate of almost one drink driver for every 100 tests conducted. Police will allege in local courts several drivers caught over the weekend recorded blood alcohol levels ranging from 0.01 to as high as 0.195, and the crackdown on the offence will continue.
Targeting the known hotspots and the back roads around the Hunter area, looking at drink driving offences.
The worst result of the weekend was the death of a 47-year-old Maxville woman, killed when the trike she was a passenger on collided with a four-wheel drive on the Pacific Highway north of Tea Gardens. While the long weekend operation wraps up tonight, police say their Hunter enforcement begins a new phase tomorrow, which runs for the remainder of the school holidays. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The leftovers of a busy day at the beach. Rubbish strewn across the sand, sunbathers lying amongst the mess, while garbage bins remain half full. One Newcastle councillor has labelled the scene a disgrace.
I question the education system. I was taught at school, don't litter, do the right thing.
It's a message that has stuck with some, but judging by this, not enough people are watching their waste. Of course, littering is an offence, with possible fines ranging from $60 for discarding cigarette butts to $200 for general littering. Local councils are the main enforcers of the laws, but Aaron Buman claims it's not happening.
You can't tell me that it wouldn't take a couple of months of strong enforcement to get the message across.
Councillor Buman is calling for a crackdown on beach littering, saying it's harming the environment and Newcastle's tourism image. It's been a while since Matara has had this kind of pulling power. Car spaces were at a premium on the foreshore today as people flocked to the festival.
We are so excited about it. We knew it was going to come back, and I think our new location is what has brought everybody back.
Families made the most of the public holiday, the kids taking a spin on the rides, while the animals took centre stage for Pets on Parade. The changed layout of the event, part of a new approach as organisers try to win over a new generation of festival goers.
Every part of Matara, there is something to see. Like Sideshow Alley, of course. The show, you have so many different areas. This is what we want to do.
As usual, the pets were a favourite. Dogs dressed up in their finery, spots were fashionable, although the wind made for a rather bad hair day. Amongst all the pooches, one brave cat put forward electric blue painted claws to win the crowd's praise. Matara continues all week, wrapping up on Sunday.
He's worn the green and gold of Australia for the Prime Minister's 13, but Kurt Gidley can't wait for the real thing in less than 2 weeks.
I don't think it's anything more than representing your country in any sport. So it's going to be something special when that anthem's been played.
His brother Matt sung it several times in his career, but will front for St Helens in the Super League decider the day before Kurt's big game, leaving family with a tough choice of where to go.
Yeah, my old man thinks he's Donald Trump at the moment. He can fly around, on his own private jet to these games, but I'm not sure his bank balance agrees.
The Newtons made sure they didn't miss the biggest match in Clint's career. After his much publicised walk out of Newcastle mid-season, a try and a grand final ring justified his move south.
It has been a tough year. It's been an indifferent year, but it's a year that I've learnt from, and I think I've grown stronger from it, and what a great way to finish it.
Anthony Quinn couldn't agree more. Chased by the storm, he repaid that faith with 2 grand final tries.
I'm always going to be Novocastrian, and you never lose that. But it's just great to come down here and definitely win a premiership.
And Knights bound forward Ben Cross reckons he's a chance of soon repeating the winning effort.
We've got a new life in Newcastle. We get to help rebuild a proud club, get back to the coast, which is lovely. We've just bought a house up there, so hopefully we can help Newcastle get back to where they belong.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Newcastle may have lost against Sydney FC at the weekend, but they're far from keen to make it a habit, and this weekend's game has added spice.
Well, it'll be first versus second, and it's a derby. So if that doesn't get the blood pumping for everyone, well, I don't know what will.
Defender Andrew Durante has been ruled out for a further 2 weeks after confirmation of a calf tear. But when training proper resumes tomorrow, there'll be no time to soak up the rays for the rest of the squad. The coach demanding greater competition among players for the starting team.
Have real intensity in our training sessions. Some of the ones who probably don't get as much game time need to put pressure on the ones who have.
And don't think their rivals this Sunday won't be smarting either. The Central Coast were well beaten overnight in Adelaide in a drama-filled match, which began with a Bruce Gitte goal. Sasho Petrovski somehow squeezed home an equaliser after a goalmouth scramble. Damien Brown somehow clearing this off the line to save the Mariners. But no one could save skipper Tony Vidmar, dismissed for the second time in 2 games. The Gitte's double rounding out a tough night for the visitors. Adelaide home 2-1, but the Mariners remain on top, 4 points clear of Newcastle. "8 seconds comes and goes pretty quick, but try telling that to rodeo clown Warren Norton, who showed just how serious this sport can be when coming to the aid of Luke Collard after his ride went wrong in a big way. For others, like Uralla's Chris Lowe, it can look all too easy. When he tamed a beast named Sand and Gravel, the cowboy called Freddie was in the box seat for the title. It was going to take a top effort to beat that, and Jason O'Hearn had just the thing aboard Ghost Train. The 2004 Aussie champ back in the winner's circle once again. From bulls to bowls, but never has a few letters made such a change in pace. The New South Wales Under-25 Championship finished today with Newcastle's David Govan keen to remain unbeaten in 5 rounds. However, Hunter Valley's Jared Duncan ended his winning run, but not that of Newcastle, with the host zone winning the tournament. And yachting's State Youth Championships wrapped up on waters of Lake Macquarie close to Belmont, with a range of local craft doing well. In all, 2 division titles headed to the home club on what was a testing afternoon for the juniors, especially when afternoon winds strengthened. Brothers turn rivals at Hindmarsh Stadium last night as Mariners captain Tony Vidmar led his side against the Aurelio-coached Adelaide. It was Danny Vukovic, though, who came under early fire. The Central Coast keeper was aiming for a record number of clean sheets until his Olyrood teammate Bruce Gitte ended that. A reply soon followed as the Mariners turned a corner into equaliser. A goal-mouth scramble if ever there was one, with Sasho Petrovski eventually on the end of it. To be fair, it was desperate defence that was keeping the Mariners in it. Damien Brown somehow clearing this off the line. The Reds didn't let up and everyone thought Jite had landed the killer blow with another stunning strike. However, a free kick awarded just before amazingly nullified the goal. For the second time in 3 weeks, the Mariners skipper failed to see out the game thanks to a second bookable offence. His mood really would have been red after this. Justice for Jite, who got his double and Adelaide a 2-1 win.
The trees were burning fiercely at Port Stephens this afternoon. Luckily, the worst of the fire was deep in the bush and a small squadron of helicopters and aeroplanes were bombarding it with water. But a gusty wind change just after lunch caused the fire to spot and burn on 3 separate fronts from Swan Bay near Karua in the north to Saltash and Madawi in the south. Quickly, efforts turned from water bombing inaccessible bush to houses in the fire's path.
The guys will concentrate at the moment strictly to property protection and make sure that people are safe, they're safe, and we'll rely on the aircraft then to hopefully try and pull the head of the fire up.
The Higginbottom's house on Lemon Tree Passage Road was under threat. They spent the afternoon with hoses and sprinklers waiting for the worst.
We've got all our gutters full of water and made sure there's nothing that's going to ignite around the place.
When the wind changed and brought it back from Moffat Swamp, she come back on us. And now with this southerly going to come tonight, if it goes that way too far, she'll bring it back that way.
One of the RFS crews helping protect homes only minutes earlier had flames licking at their tanker in the bush nearby. Crew captain Mark Chick and his men escaped uninjured.
It's pretty intense, but the flame height was above our requirements to direct attack, so we had to go back to a fallback position. So.
Did it come over the vehicle?
It was close, yeah, very close.
There were concerns for elderly residents at the Tanilba Shores village when one of the spot fires loomed. A tanker was placed on standby there. Tonight, 100 firefighters from throughout the Central Coast and Lake Macquarie are helping battle the Port Stephens fires, while property owners nervously await a southerly change forecast for tonight and the effect that may have on the fires. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Have no doubts, Australia's internationally renowned equestrian teams are in serious trouble. Since the equine flu outbreak, all domestic competitions have been cancelled, including an Olympic qualifier in Sydney. That's left our national dressage team one last chance in Belgium, but our best horses won't be there.
A team that should just walk into Beijing may not be at Beijing, and just because we can't even make the qualifiers.
It gets worse for Heath Ryan. He has the top 2 ranked dressage horses in the country, the efforts of a decade's work. But they're both locked down at his Hunter Valley property.
My one opportunity of my lifetime, I could never even pray to be in this situation, is just going to be wasted.
It's not just Olympic dreams on hold, but livelihoods. Together with wife Rosie, the pair have devoted almost 3 decades to breeding, teaching and competing at the highest level. And just days before the vaccine arrived, their property was infected by EI, leaving pregnant mares and newborn foals vulnerable, along with their $1.25 million a year business.
We're certainly not the only ones, and there's a lot of people that are very scared about how they're going to earn a living, how they're going to basically pay bills, put food on the table.
This is a crashing around my years tragedy, and to say I'm outraged is serious understatement.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Forensic police officers this morning combed the scene of the stabbing, looking for any clues near where the man collapsed and died, and detectives canvassed other homes in the street, hoping for information that might help them find out how and why the man was attacked.
Shortly after 2 a.m. this morning, a 36-year-old local man presented at a home in Manning Street at the entrance, suffering from a wound to his chest, seeking medical assistance.
But it was too late. Ambulance officers who arrived a short time later couldn't revive the man. At this stage, police are treating the death as a murder investigation and have set up a crime scene in much of Manning Street. So far, they've spoken to a number of residents and they're hoping others may come forward.
We're seeking information from any people who haven't been spoken to by police yet to contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000 or Tuggerah Lakes Police.
Police say they're still in the process of formally identifying the man. In the meantime, they expect to be continuing extensive inquiries around the immediate area of the stabbing death. David Gardner, NBN News.
These are just some of the business people to end up out of pocket when a company in the Hunter failed, was placed in administration, then liquidated. From coal to construction, the amount of money lost by contractors and small businesses for work done they're not paid for over the past 4 years totals millions. Newcastle MP Sharon Grierson today also put the losses suffered by private investors on the radar of Craig Emerson, the Shadow Minister for Small Business.
It's about time it stopped, and the only way it's going to stop if we put a rocket under the regulators and make the regulators enforce the laws.
An attitude change by the Investments and Securities Commission on investigating company collapses would also be demanded by a federal Labor government.
If they take the view that particular collapses are too small for them, then everyone will know that if you keep the collapse within a particular size, it'll never be subject to any regulatory oversight or intervention, and that's just not good enough.
Newcastle Master Builders Association says the ALP commitment is long overdue.
The legislation's there, the regulations are there, but we need someone that will strongly police it, and I don't think that's been done to date.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
You're looking at a picture of concentration. 12 of the Hunter's best electrical apprentices testing their skills in their chosen field.
Quite often apprentices work in isolation. They don't get an opportunity to benchmark themselves against others in the industry, and this does that for them.
With apprentices receiving plenty of government attention, the Sparkies say they're happy to learn a trade.
It's a good way to land a career in the end of it, and it's a good way to get a skill for life if they have to fall back on it.
Today's task required entrants to simulate a system for unloading cargo. Grossly outnumbered by the boys, first-year apprentice Kimberly Crotty says she never expected to win, but she's happy to test herself.
If I can just take the experience from today and put it towards my work at BHP, then maybe next year I might have a better chance.
The regional winner will be decided tonight. Meanwhile, the Australian Technical College at Maitland is on track to be completed by February and will offer a range of courses including construction and engineering. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Placed on ice since his knockover a week ago, Griffiths has barely run since the Melbourne match and isn't expected to until Friday, but says he will be playing. That's when he knows the injury really will get a workout.
Especially when you get a message off the playing against Dean Heffernan saying that, which one's your sore leg.
The one-time Socceroo is convinced Mariners players will target him under instructions from coach Laurie McKenna.
I'm sure he wouldn't say, be nice to me. He'd probably test my leg and I'll probably get a couple of quick early shots on it early. Still a little bit tender, so, I'll be expecting the worst, that's for sure.
As for his teammates, they toughed out 2 solid sessions in today's heat as Newcastle prepares for Sunday's top-of-the-table match at Gosford. The derby shaping as another beauty, with the war of words kicking up a notch today as the Mariners go to Jet supporters.
Mariners members and Marinators have travelled in big numbers up there every game we've had, and they've been few and far between when they've came down here. So to get that local atmosphere, it's all great. You can do it on the park, but you need it off the park as well, and that generates a great game.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
We actually looked all over Sydney, in Adelaide, where I was working at the time, and here, and we were just sold by the place hands down. I think it's the scenery, it's a great weekend escape for all your guests, it's beautiful, and you can drink lots of wine.
With scorching temperatures predicted, residents on the coast woke to a hazy shade of summer as smoke blanketed Port Stephens and Newcastle. By early afternoon, fires continued to rage, with strong winds moving some of the haze out to sea, covering coal ships. The early start to the bushfire season forced the New South Wales Asthma Foundation to issue a warning for all sufferers to stay indoors if heavy smoke is nearby. With a hot, dry spring and summer predicted, the foundation also urged the state's 800,000 asthmatics to stock up on medication and to consult their doctor if symptoms get worse. There was little cause for concern on the beach today, though, with every man and his dog breathing easy before taking a dip. Some chose to warm up before hitting the surf, but the cool water temperature didn't deter surfers or swimmers at Newcastle or Bar Beach. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.